What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Kill Shot MMA breakdown. We're looking at UFC London Aspinall versus Volkov, Draftkings picks, some bets you're gonna like, some fades, some solid approaches. Let's do this. All right, I got the sleeveless one himself, Big Marley, to break down UFC London Aspinall Volkov. What's going on, Big Marl?
Not much. I'm excited for this card. We lost the Nathaniel Wood fight. Pretty angry about that. I liked Wood quite a bit in that fight. I had him in a bet already. But we still got 12 fights on the card. If we keep that, I'm cool with it. Got 100K up top. And there's some good fights on this card with some solid prospects. So I'm looking forward to it.
I think that this card has got a lot of clear spots to go heavy on. There's a really interesting aspect of it being in London where you pretty much cannot expect any non-British fighter to get any sort of decisions in their favor unless they absolutely destroy the competition, which helps us a little bit. It would help me. It's helping me. We've got a main event with a guy scheduled to go 5 rounds, Big Marley, who, from what I can tell, has never really been more than a minute or two into the second round of any fight in his career. Can he get there? Can he last 5 rounds? I don't know. We're going to have to talk about it. A lot of really great spots. You're right. We lost one fight, but the rest are still here. And let's not waste any time. I know everybody's watching March Madness, but you got to take a break on Saturday afternoon. Watch a little UFC. This is going to be a good one. Early start on Saturday. This takes place in London. And Big Marley, the first fight on the and this one, man, I got some red flags. There are red flags flying up, pulling the string. Red flag heading to the top of the pole. Mohammed Makayev taking on Cody Durden. Makayev minus 400 favorite. Interesting. The comeback on Durden is plus 325. He is a big-time underdog. Fight goes the distance, plus 140. Now, Big Marl, break this one down for me. How do you see it going down?
I'm excited for this one. This Makayev kid's only 21 years old. He looks like the real deal already, but his level of competition isn't very good. It shows him 5-0 and 6-0 on some sites as a professional, but he went 23-0 as an amateur. So this kid's got a lot of actual fight experience, and his grappling is just amazing. His striking's all right, mainly his kicks. When he's throwing one punch at a time, it's a little sloppy, but they looks all right when he puts them in combinations. But his specialty is on the ground. He's a good wrestler, and he's a really good scrambler. Like, he'll get taken down, and then next thing you know, he's in full mount 3 seconds later type deal. Just because he's such a good scrambler. He's a good submission artist as well. And then on the Durden side, I mean, he's got more experience. He's a UFC vet at this point, but he's mainly a wrestler. That's his best attribute. And I don't think he's as good of a wrestler as Makayev already. And if he is able to get a takedown or two, I don't see him being able to do much with it. Whereas if Makayev gets a takedown, I think he could end the fight in any round. And this guy can go a hard 15 minutes with grappling heavy for all of it, where I don't see Durden being able to do that. I think the longer this goes, the more it shifts into Makayev's favor. And I really just favor him from the jump. So I like Makayev in this one. I think he does get a submission at some point in the fight, but I've also heard a lot of people, a little bit worried about it, minus 400 favorite, only 21 years old, no real competition. I went into this card thinking he was going to be the chalk of the card, but I don't know that that's the case anymore. So I'm going overweight to Makayev, and I'm going to full fade Durden because I think at this point he's going to be a little bit overowned.
Yeah, what is the red flag, Big Marley? The red flag is 21-year-old kid as a massive favorite. It's that simple, right? And I get why people are looking at Durden, and I am too, because who have we seen come into the UFC and then disappoint the shit out of us when they got here, right? Chase Hooper. 20-year-old, 21-year-old kid.
Oh, those are you can't compare these.
Well, I mean, you can because he's young. I'll give you a better another comparison. Sage Northcutt, hyped youngster, 20 years old, listen, there's a difference between your strength.
But they set him up. They set him up right out of the gates. And Sage won his first couple of fights, and that's what I think they're doing with Makayev. I think Durden is handpicked from the UFC to make this kid look good.
That could very well be. And listen, it's very clear to me that this card is designed to allow most of the British fighters to win. We know England, Britain, England. Man, these people are fucking crazy for their sports. They're crazy for their athletes. They love UFC over there. They rarely get a card in Great Britain. It's been, a COVID bonanza of almost 3 years. They haven't had a fight there. These guys are being set up to win, but I'm not laying 400 on a 21-year-old who's never fought anyone of note, especially when he's going up against a fighter who has wins in the UFC. I know Durden doesn't look special on tape, or, he doesn't really stand out, but to me, that's the red flag. He's 21, so I totally get it. I love it as a GPP play, and I think you're right. Ownership will not be there for this kid, especially with, listen, there's like a within 1 minute sub sitting at 9,200 on this card, just like a couple of hundies above Makayev. You've got pretty much a locked in, maybe within 100 seconds type sub for Gunnar Nelson, right?
The 9K range is really interesting this week.
Yeah, there's so many spots at 9K itself. You've got a gigantic finisher hanging out. We'll see what happens with him. So to me, I'm throwing up the flag, and I would say, especially because this fight, Big Marl, if Makayev was going up against a guy who had no wrestling background and no grappling, I'd be much more interested in it. Like, yeah, he can get a quick takedown, do a little grappling, but Durden's a wrestler, like he could probably counter. And I don't think Makayev is a striker at all. I think that part of his game probably has to evolve a little bit. So I'm definitely not taking, I think it's worth taking a shot on the betting line on the underdog here. And even if it doesn't win, what I would do is just like, hey, anytime a 21-year-old is making their UFC debut, I fade him. As a big favorite, I fade him. Just like do that all the time. It's going to work out. Over time, that will be, I think, a profitable strategy because again, we've seen with these hyped youngsters, they're, it's 21 years old. Even your boy. All right, I'll give you an example because I need to get through to the big Marley head because you're not nodding enough in approval.
No, I'm all in on Makayev. I'm almost all in now. Yeah.
I'm not even. This is a philosophy. This has nothing to do with this fighter.
I get it, but he's special. Like he's up there with like the Macy Barber, the John Jones, and they didn't disappoint in their debuts.
Not in their debut, but we saw Macy Barber take some L's too.
Maybe we'll see this kid take some L's too.
That's what I'm saying. Like I'm not going to be this one, but I'm going to give you the perfect example. Du Bronx. Now he won a lot.
He was amazing out of the gates.
He was great, but look how much better he is now. Like the guys he was beating then. Like he was losing to guys that he destroys now when he was 21. I'm using it more as an example of when you're young, you're just not as good. Like a fighter is going to peak when he's 25, 27. He's got his full strength to him, right? These guys come in 21. They're I mean, like I said, I think Chase Hooper will be good eventually, but he's a little too string beanie. Maybe he's a little too gangly or you think he's Ben Askren? He could never.
He's going to get his ass kicked a lot. Until he gets kicked out. Yeah, those two are not comparable at all. Chase Hooper never had any sort of like hype like this kid has.
Yeah, all right, that's fair. I would also argue that Makayev is this insane Dagestani style wrestler who's in Great Britain taking on British people.
He's the new breed. He's what we like to see, a guy who can go for 20 takedowns in a fight if he really needs to. Like,
yeah. And what I do love about this, though, and I love about your play, and this is what I'm saying, I'm just talking about the betting line, right? I wouldn't bet this because, no, don't bet it, right? There is that possibility that Durden's just stronger than him. But for DraftKings purposes, his style of fighting is very, very conducive to scoring well, potentially. And the lower ownership does stand out as something that could, again, there's a lot of really good favorites. Sorry to spend so much time on this one because I feel like the angle of the youth is important to sort of talk about. But I mean, Cody Durden's also a wrestler. like I said, I would not be laying minus 400. Matter of fact, if I had to bet this, I would bet the Durden side of it. Take my shot. Yes, is he probably going to lose? Okay, well, I'm getting plus 300. Of course, he's probably going to lose. But I would rather take my shot on a grown man who's had a win in the UFC before than I would on a 21-year-old making his debut super hyped. You don't bet that. I'm not betting that. I don't know. Big Marley, give me the nod, man. Come on.
I bet him with Topurya already.
You did. Oh, so there you
like
go.
weeks ago, 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Buying the hype. Well, there you go. At least it's with a at least it's in a parlay.
Yeah, and I got better numbers on both of them. So I think I got like minus 150 for the two of them.
Okay. All right.
Can't get that now.
Yeah. I mean, I see other, I would have just thrown Gunner in there. How does he lose that?
Well, then I made another one, a bigger one with Wood and Topurya, which is now just Topurya straight. So that's
a lot of Topurya. I have some bets on this card. What I did was I parlayed up a couple of these favorites with before the line move with Grundy, because again I have a strong lean on the Grundy fight. I just kind of feel like I know how it's going to go down. We'll see. We'll see. But when you throw at the time it was like plus 140. When you throw a plus 140 in there, all of a sudden you're getting real or a minus 140. I mean, with those other heavy favorites, all of a sudden pretty heavy plus money on that parlay. But I digress. Next up, where am I? Oh yeah. Next up, we've got Elise Reed taking on Corey McKenna. McKenna is the favorite here at minus 265 with Elise Reed coming back at plus 225. Big Marley, what can you tell me about these two warriors?
So yeah, McKenna looks pretty good. She looks well-rounded, but her specialty is on the ground, whereas Reed is mainly just a striker, and she really struggles on the ground. In her debut, she just got dominated and finished in the first round by Eubanks. I think she landed one strike before she got finished in that one. And this looks to me like another setup fight where they want McKenna to go out there and look good. I think she can keep this close on the feet, win it there. But if she can get this to the ground, I think she just can get a 30-27, get a finish in any round. And I like the submission prop. It was minus 750. I'm sorry, plus 750 earlier in the week. I think that's pretty solid because that's what I'm picking here is McKenna submission. I think she's an interesting GPP play because everyone will gravitate to the people in the 9K range. So she'll be a little bit under-owned. I think she has a safe floor as well, so not a bad cash game play. And then on the Reed side, I think the only reason she would make any sense is if you're trying to go for a solo 100K and you're using her for ownership purposes, hoping something crazy happens. But aside from her, maybe winning a close striking battle, I don't see her putting up a score in this one. If she can't get a TKO, she's not going to score well. So for me, it's McKenna or pass. And I'm a little bit interested in maybe going overweight in McKenna just for ownership reasons, trying to get that 100K or 150 in the mini max, whatever it is I do. She's the side I'm interested in all formats.
Do we feel pretty locked in that McKenna is going to go for takedowns here?
No, I mean, that's just one of those where that's what I would want her doing. You know what I'm saying? But if she's winning the fight on the feet and she doesn't have to, then she'd go for a striking battle, win 3 rounds there possibly, but that wouldn't score well. So from a DraftKings angle, we're wanting her to get this to the ground.
Yeah, definitely. I want to get a sense of like how likely it is that she'll do that because she hasn't done it per se in her previous fights. She's gotten a takedown here
Hanson's
or there.
A much better grappler though than Reed.
Yeah.
So like game plan wise, I think that it makes sense that like you're not looking for wrestling in that camp, whereas this one you should be.
Yeah, hopefully their team alpha male coaches have prepped her in that way because that is how you get the plus 750 submission to go down. Man, I love that number. I think it's definitely worth taking a shot on that. And if she gets there at her price point, McKenna's one of those. There's a few middling salary price. She's going to be super low owned, is what it comes down to. No one's going to want to roster her. There's much more interesting names floating in the salary range, and especially McKenna being not that cheap on this card. I think you're getting a classic GPP play that could take down the tournament if you win. How much exposure do you give yourself to McKenna if you're building 150?
I'm not sure. I haven't finished all my stuff yet, so I still got to finish my article and then I got to do ownership. So I'm going to kind of let those decide what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to start building in a couple hours after that. I would think she's probably going to be, 20, a little sub 20% owned. So I would likely want to go over that, and I'd maybe want to be closer to 25, 30%.
Interesting. Yeah, I think she'll be sub 15% owned. But I got to wait for the big Marley ownership projections till I know for sure.
Yeah, I think the 9K range will be really highly owned, which will just put her overlooked.
Separately, and this is really important, I want to mention this as well. Full fade on Reed. No interest. Zero for me.
Yeah, I'm probably Xing her out at 150.
Yeah. I think talking about the fades is really important. I got no interest in Reed. I don't know how she scores well. She's going to knock this girl out. There's too many paths, even if she's winning the striking battles where McKenna can go for the takedown. So, I'm going to avoid any sort of exposure to Elise Reed. All right, next up, we've got my favorite underdog on this card. Incorrectly priced underdog, Jack Shore, a.k.a. DraftKings Gold Shore. It's going up against Timur Valiev. Shore is now a minus 103 underdog, with Timur Valiev coming in at minus 117. Now, big dog, big Marl, 17-inch guns. I get Jack Shore, a maniacal wrestler. That's all he do. On DraftKings, his salary is, $7,600, I believe. So we're getting dog salary for a guy who is now not an underdog. What's up with that? Seems like an all-in play.
Ooh, not all in, but yeah, he's definitely one of the favorite dogs for me as well. I think he'll be the most chalky dog, though.
Yes.
So I'm not sure how owned he will be, but I would imagine I'm right in line with the field, if not over it, because he is one of my favorite, one of maybe only 2 or 3 underdogs on the entire card that I'm picking to win. But it's close, man, and it was really the plus money that talked me into that pick. If it was, a pick 'em fight going into it, I might have leaned towards Valiev, but I don't know. I just think if this turns into a grappling contest, I do give Shore the edge. I think he is, a good wrestler, and if he can get top control, I think he can keep it for a while. Decent submission artist as well. Valiev's going to have the edge on the feet. He's a decent wrestler himself too, so I think he could have some success there. But I don't know if he can submit Shore or keep Shore down. Where I just think if this turns into a scramble fest, then give me the Shore side. And he's never scored less than 87 points in any 4 of his wins. At 7,600, that's probably going to be on the optimal. So on a card where we're really searching for underdogs, it's hard not to like Shore in all formats. So, yeah, I'm down with him being my highest owned underdog, but I'm okay getting away from him as well because he will be the chalk on the card. So we can make some interesting lineups without him. I'll probably let the DS control what I do with 150, but I would imagine it gives me a good amount.
You're going to get a ton of Shore if you try to run 150. Remember, anytime you get dog salary at essentially even odds, that projection is going to be stronger than everybody else. I can guarantee you that right now. Listen, what more do you want from Shore? The guy doesn't even want to strike. He wants to wrestle the whole fight. That's what I want on UFC. On DraftKings, that's what I want. I want those kind of guys. And Big Marley, again, the factor that we're not factoring in. The crowd is going to go bananas every time this guy gets a takedown, every time he goes for one. It's going to be so loud. The judges are going to give him the decision. If it's even close, if it's even possible, they're giving him the win. That's what's going to happen. This is UK. They're not there to prove themselves as equitable judges. They're there to reward the British fighters for being British. Let's keep it real.
That's true.
Valiev needs to get a finish in this fight. Who is he finished? He finishes no one. He needs to get a finish in this fight to get the W. That's why I love this pick so much. And Jack Shore, just in case you didn't know, I'm going to throw the stats up on the screen. I know you know. 4.47 takedowns on average per 15 minutes. And Valiev, not the greatest takedown defense, just 50%. Now, I think maybe he's only been taken down once out of 2 attempts in his career. I don't know, but 50% is a good number. I mean, listen, the numbers don't lie here. Valiev has beaten better guys. That's if you want to give him an edge. But again, I think the judging edge goes significantly to Jack Shore here. Great play, and I'll have a ton of him in
What do you
DraftKings.
do on the Valiev side for DraftKings?
I'm not interested. How does Valiev score well?
A knockout.
I don't see it. I don't think they're going to be standing to knock each other out.
Yeah, I think he makes sense just as an ownership play because he'll go overlooked. But with my hand builds, I don't see me clicking on him at all.
I could not pull the trigger. There's a few guys where I'm like, we'll get to another couple of these guys, but you got to fade some spots, Big Marl. You can't be on every single. Jack Shore is tough. I don't see him getting knocked out. Timur Valiev, not a knockout guy. It could happen. But, there's too many fights for me to have a piece of every single side of every. The more things we can eliminate, the better our chances.
Deep GPP only, like the mini max or if you're going for 100K. Yeah, that's the only type of tournament I would use Valiev in.
Super low. And I do like that as a philosophical DraftKings play. Whenever it's these even odds fights where one guy's salaried above even odds salary, they usually become extremely low owned and they become very interesting tournament plays if they can win. We saw it with RDA and Moicano a couple weeks ago. Like a lot of people played Moicano, that's not quite the perfect example, but you get the idea. You're getting RDA at minus odds, and we see this kind of thing all the time when lines move. So there we go. I'm fading Valiev. It's another fade. I'm fading Reed and Valiev so far. Full fades. But I'm not making 150, so I can do that. I'll probably make more like 30 40 lineups.
I'm Xing out Durden too, so I got 3 fades.
There you're Xing. I'm not Xing out Durden, man. I am playing the 21-year-old. The guy he's just started drinking.
He probably didn't. He's
probably not drinking. Yeah, that's right. But I mean, he just hit legal age.
Yep.
He just got his car like 3 weeks ago for the first time. He's driving on a permit. Muhammad Makayev. He came to England as like a Dagestani wrestler. Of course he won every fucking wrestling competition. Doesn't shock me. All right. Shamil. This is another one. We might get another fade here. I don't know. Shamil Abdul Rahmaf taking on Sergey Pavlovic. Sergey Pavlovic minus 290. Shamil comeback plus 245. Big Marley. 2 big guys. How do you see this one going down?
Yeah, I got another fade here in Shamil. He's 40. He's at least 40 years old now.
40.
I think he is 40 years old now.
Yes.
He has not been looking good. He's coming off a layoff. He's just too slow. His path to victory would be to get a takedown, keep top control long enough to win 2 rounds. But I don't see him landing more than 2 or 3 takedowns if this fight does even go all 15 minutes. So I'm just not interested in him. Maybe he can land a lucky punch on the feet. He'll be super low owned. So if that's what you want to do is just take an ownership approach to it, then that's okay. But I'm on the Pavlovic side here. I think he gets a knockout. Can get it in any round, but I think he gets it in round 1. That's lined at plus 100. He's minus 225 inside the distance. So yeah, I think we get a knockout from the Pavlovic side. And then it's just that, what do you want to do with that 9K range? I mean, I'm interested in Pavlovic. I want to go overweight if I can, but I like all of them. So you're going to have to go underweight somewhere. I got my spot that I'll be underweight on, but I'm hoping that puts me, 35, 40+% on the Pavlovic side. And I think that would be overweight to the field because I think these grapplers might end up getting more of the ownership. I'm not sure, though. I'm not sure about the Pavlovic ownership. That's what I would like to get a better feel on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 9K fight. It's minus 300. I think it's actually minus 390 to end inside the distance. So, I mean, that tells you a lot right there. You're right. Abdul Rahmaf didn't look that great his last couple fights. But in fairness to Shamil, I mean, no one's looking that great against Curtis Blades just ragdolling you. And Dawkins, Dawkins is pretty good too. So he lost to some pretty good guys. I'm not going to fault him too much. The problem with him is he does not have a gas tank to take down Pavlovic and hold him down for 3 rounds. There's no way this guy's pulling that. He never does that. He's also old now. I mean, the gas tank for these heavy guys, like, he's just not going to be able to do that. And when on the feet, Pavlovic he's striking at a massive 6+ strikes per minute level. My one concern with Pavlovic would be the same concern I generally have with these younger fighters that haven't fought for 3 rounds, which is, or frequently fought to decision, which is, what happens if, Shamil kind of does wrestle him a little bit. Maybe we see Pavlovic gassing himself out at some point if Shamil could just handle the barrage.
Yeah, if there's no finish, Pavlovic is not going to score well. So if you told me this fight goes 3 rounds or into the 3rd round, then he's a full fade type deal. So yeah, if this makes it out of round 1, I don't feel really good about him being on the optimal lineup. If it makes it out of round 2, he's out of it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That's why there's so many options up top here. My approach to this card is going to be it's very much like set the max at 30% on these guys and let it just, the only guy, I do have one that I'm supremely confident in to the point where I just might, and it's a fighter I probably shouldn't have that confidence in.
Yeah, I think it's my fade, but we'll talk about it.
Oh no. All right, we'll see. All right, maybe you're going to convince me otherwise. See, this always happens. You're just fucking with my shit. But I do have someone that I'm very confident in for a fast finish. We'll see if that happens. So hopefully it's not your fade, but you guys got to stick around. And remember, you're watching, you like what you see. You got to hit notify on this channel, let you know when our videos are coming out, subscribe, notify, like, all of that stuff. YouTube channel goodness. Help us out. Help the algorithm out. Help your friends out. Find this show. All right. Big Marl. Next up, we have got Mike Grundy, minus 185, taking on Makwan Amirkhani at plus 160. Fight goes to decision, minus 185, which I agree with. Not a high likelihood of a finish in this one, Big Marley. How do you see this one going down?
I want to make sure that we don't skip the Craig Krylov fight because in order we did.
My order is different than. Oh, I did skip it, but all right.
But yeah, this fight is like the most, like the one I don't know what I'm gonna do with yet. Minus 190 goes to a decision. I would think that probably keeps the winner off the optimal lineup. I mean, both these guys are primarily grapplers. Neither one of them has a hard 15-minute gas tank. Amirkhani's like a 1-round gas tank. Grundy maybe can get 2 out of it. I would say Grundy's the better striker here, a lot more likely to get a knockout. Amirkhani's a better grappler, round 1, but Grundy's a better wrestler. So I don't know that Amirkhani can have wrestling success himself. So I am on the Grundy side here. It's just that I don't trust him enough either, especially now at minus 190. I liked him when he was like minus 140 range. Like that was cool. I thought there was a little value there.
That's when I got my bet in.
Yeah, I think that's a good bet. Because I am picking him to win, at least 2 rounds. So I'm taking him to win a unanimous decision here, which makes me not really like him or Amirkhani too much. I did bet very small. Grundy wins by TKO in round 2 at like plus 2,900, and then very small on Grundy wins by TKO in round 3 at like plus 3,700. So that's kind of what I'll be hoping for. And if either one of those happen, I think he does score well on DraftKings. So I want some shares of him. But when I'm hand building, I'm probably clicking on these other favorites that I like more. So I think it'll be more hand builds. I avoid this fight. And then with my 150, I just let the domination station take over. Maybe I'll limit both sides to 20, 25% max, and then just let it spit out whatever it does type deal. That's what I'm thinking my approach will be. But I would also say it's probably GPP only because I don't want to trust either one of these guys in a cash game lineup.
It's interesting on the betting side. I think that one of the approaches you could use in this one is maybe a live bet after the first round, because I think you nailed it. Makwan, man, that dude is as gasser of a gasser as we've seen. And he comes out fire in the first round. Now, he could adjust his style. But even if he does, I think Grundy's wrestling will gas Makwan anyway. Like, both of these guys have the same desire right off the bat. They're both like, I'm going to take you down and submit you. Makwan usually comes out like a lunatic in the first round, gets a bunch of takedowns. His striking is, you said, I mean, Grundy's striking isn't the best, but yeah, Makwan's striking is really, really not very good. So I think what happens is maybe Makwan looks pretty good in the first round, and then like he usually does, and then he kind of slows down, and Grundy will take over in the second and third, and you probably live bet it and maybe get, Grundy at dog odds right after round 1. So if you hadn't bet it yet, that might be an approach for people who haven't bet it yet. Yeah, and I agree with you on DraftKings. I think Grundy's going to win. I think Makwan has shown he doesn't really have a style. If he can't get you out of there with a submission or something in the first round, he has a really hard time lasting for a full fight, keeping up his insane pace. I think Grundy counters him with his wrestling anyway. So I think Grundy's going to get this win. As far as the DraftKings, I don't mind pulling trigger, but when you're making the Grundy decision, it's relative, right? You're making it, you're choosing between him, Molly Meatball, or basically like a Dan Hooker. And, I can make arguments for any one of those three outscoring the other two. So when I'm left with that kind of like 8,500 salary amount, I've already got one of Volkov or I've made a bunch of lines. You start every lineup with Aspinall, Volkov, and then it's like, all right, I already have my one middling guy. Who's my second? And Grundy can fall in the mix, but I agree with you. I don't think Grundy's really live outside of that second round finish, big Marley money play that will get you more than 85 or 88 fantasy points here. So, will that be enough? Probably not.
Yeah, my worry is that Grundy is just the better striker here, doesn't go for takedowns himself, stuffs takedowns from Americani where he's not scoring there, and just keeps us on the feet for 3 rounds, wins with like 60, 65 points.
Yeah, I mean, that would be super surprising for me, but maybe. I've never seen Grundy try to fight like that, but, you're right. Matchup-wise, maybe that makes more sense, but I've just, obviously we haven't seen Grundy do that so far in his UFC career.
I think that would be his best approach in round 1, and then when Americani's tired, I think you're safer on the ground. You can go for takedowns.
Absolutely. All right, let's go back to one of my favorite fights, and all-in fight for me on this card, Big Marley. All in. This is now, as all-in as all-in gets, right? 80%. Paul Craig, Nikita Krylov. La Femme, Nikita Krylov. Coming in as a minus 190 favorite, with Paul Craig a plus 165 underdog. Now, here's the big number, Big Marl. Fight ends inside the distance, minus 215. So reasonably high likelihood of this fight ending in a finish. And what I really like about this fight is both guys are finishers. By the way, the fight inside the distance, that is the bet here. So that's the best bet. Nikita Krylov has gone to decision how many times in his career, Big Marl?
So yeah, minus 250 that the fight ends inside the distance is like 72%. These guys combined have 55 total fights. 4 of them have ended inside the distance, or 4 of them have gone to decision, which is 92% of the time that their fights have ended inside the distance. So yeah, I think that 77 or that minus 250 is a little bit low. I do think we won't need the judges here. And the way I see it is it's a knockout from Krylov or a submission from Craig. If you're Krylov, it's just not smart to go to the ground with Craig. I think he could do okay on the ground maybe, but he could also get submitted in any round. So let's just keep this fight on the feet. You're a much better striker here. Craig can be cracked on the feet. Krylov has power. He has a lot of experience in the UFC. So I think we get the Krylov knockout, which could come in any round. Or if Craig can get takedowns, I think he could dominate, with that. Or he could pull guard, get a submission in the first round without even getting the takedown, score 90 points without even a strike. So I'm interested in both sides of it for sure. I'm picking Craig here. Craig's, I think, maybe the final underdog I'm picking on the card, him and Shore. So I'm going to be on the chalky underdogs on this card, but there's reasons to get away from him too, because he can get knocked out, in the opening, 60 seconds. Put Krylov on the optimal lineup with that 60-second bonus, knock out 25, 30% of Craig lineups. And just to be different, I'm okay sprinkling in some other underdogs. The ones going against the 9K range, I don't love, but I think they make sense for deep GPPs. But I'm okay with the whole range around the Craig and Shore just to get a little pivot off of them. But give me Craig to get a submission in this one. I think Krylov might do something stupid like go for a takedown and get tapped out. But either way, yeah, I want this fight in the majority of my lineups. Not fully all in, but yeah, I like that 80% or so that you're talking about.
Gotta load up on this fight, Big Marl. You gotta load up on it. Krylov just, again, you nailed the stat. These guys are not the type of fighters that tend to go to decision. I don't think that Krylov is the type of fighter. And listen, I don't want that will be afraid to go to the ground with Paul Craig. I don't think he's going to have any issue getting into grappling with Craig. He's going to do it. He's going to go for a takedown, Big Marley. And we're all going to be like, no, don't do that. And he's going to do it because he don't give a fuck. Now, I agree with you. I did pick Paul Craig here, but my goodness, only because he's an underdog. And I think it's very close to 50-50. I really actually think that Krylov should win this fight. He's also Ukrainian. There's a lot of pressure on the Ukrainians to step up right now. So I don't know. There's a little bit of that. I ain't trying to go against Ukrainian fighters right now. They got some focus.
They're undefeated, right? Since the war started. So.
I mean, hey, it worked for Moroz last week. We said she ain't losing. And she won, and I love that. That was a great call. She ain't losing. Like the Ukrainians not coming in here losing this fight. Paul Craig will have the crowd behind him, and Paul Craig's good. I keep saying this. Paul Craig, he's an improving fighter. Like this is not a guy who I think like he's 34. He's an improving fighter. He's gotten a little bit better since he's been in the UFC. I feel like progressively, and he's got a nasty submission game. I just think Krylov is also pretty good at getting subs and. He's been submitted, though, too. Krylov is a guy who's been submitted. This could go either way. This fight is ending inside. Just load up on the fight, Big Marley.
Yeah, so like on the past cards, we've had so many fights where it's like, I don't know who's going to win this fight, but you need to load up on it. And then I'm just throwing money into the pot, on so many different lineups by getting a guaranteed loser and all these things. This card, I like, one side of a lot of different fights a lot more. This is the one that I'm going to be throwing money into the pot. Give me, 50% Craig, 40% Krylov, something. I don't know what I'm going to end up with, but this is the one on the card where I really want to be throwing some lineups away. I think there's only 2 or 3 on the card that are like that, though. So this card's different in that way, and that makes me like it a lot more, if you're building 150 lineups.
Yeah, especially if you can marry those situations up with some really load up on them spots. And again, some strategic fades, which we've already talked about, a few potential strategic fades for this card. So bringing all that together, this fight again, the bet though, I did bet Paul Craig by submission already because I got plus 375 on it because he's only winning by submission. Why would I pay plus 160?
I got plus 350, I believe.
There you go. But I think a second bet is due here. If you have that one bet, you can either hedge it with just a Krylov to win, which is not a bad hedge in its own regard because the only way Craig is winning is by submission, or you just do fight ends inside the distance, which can give you the double victory. And I like that one a little bit better. I don't see it. I mean, I think it's, I don't know about the fight ends inside the distance lets you double dip. If you bet Krylov as a hedge, you're probably not losing money.
Yeah, I think just fight inside the distance is a solid parlay piece.
Yeah, there we go. So I agree. And I love this fight. Load up on it. That is the fight to have both sides of on this card. I think there's it's a main event too.
Definitely one more. Yeah, the main event.
There's another one too, but that one is a big one. All right, next up we have got Ilia Topurya taking on Jai Herbert. Topurya is a prohibitive -560 favorite with the comeback on Herbert at plus 430. And Big Marley, credit where it's due. You've been talking about parlaying fights with Topurya for multiple weeks. You've got all kinds of bets that are parlayed with Topurya already. He was, I think he was minus 310, 320 at the time. So got some really good numbers on Topurya. How do you see this one going down?
Yeah, I'm really high on Topurya in general. He's stepping up a weight class on short notice here against a really good striker who's going to have, I believe, a 6-inch height, 8-inch reach advantage.
Massive size advantage going on here.
Yeah. But I just don't think that matters in this fight because, like, if you're smart, you're going for takedowns and you can just mop the floor with Herbert here. I think he could dominate. I think he has one of the highest ceilings on the card because he can get a takedown. He loves punching people in the face, so he can get a whole lot of punches before he even locks up a submission. And he's also got big power on the feet. So if this is a striking match, he's got power. Herbert's got a questionable chin. I could see a knockout from Topuria in round 1.
I won't feel good for any moment that they're striking standing. I will not. I'm going to be like, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I won't feel good, but I won't be too worried at the same time.
I mean, the one dude is so much bigger. I would be worried. I'm like, yeah, all right.
He's a really good striker too, but that gives him, his one path to victory, which is most likely knockout. But he could win a 15-minute striking match as well, I guess. That's just not what he's going to see here. Topuria will be looking for takedowns. He's a really good submission artist. He's got heavy hands. He can get a ground and pound knockout as well. Topuria is probably my favorite play on the entire card. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time now. But at the same time, everyone's on Topuria at this point. So I think he might be the highest owned guy on the card. And for that reason, I think Herbert makes a little bit of sense if you're making 150 lineups. Sprinkle just a little bit of him in because that would knock off 50% plus of lineups, and you're only competing, with 5% of the field or so if that happens. So I don't hate a little sprinkle on Herbert, but more so as a hedge because I'll be so heavy on Topuria.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. The only real interest at all in Herbert would be as a counter to insane ownership on Topuria. Topuria is the safest, to me, the safest of the favorites on this card. He's the guy that the path is so clear to the win. Even the big dude, the bigger they are, sometimes the easier they are to get a takedown on. You want to put him on his back. This guy does not know what he's doing, from what I understand, off of his back. So he's not a wrestler. It's not going to be pretty here for Herbert if he gets taken down, which he will. So, he's not like a younger fighter that could have changed and gotten better as a grappler. He's not even in the same world as Topuria. There's the only thing that's going on here that gives anybody pause, and the only reason if Topuria chooses to stand and strike with this guy for inexplicable reasons, there is a massive size advantage, and I think it would be a huge mistake. I would be like, what are you doing? But beyond that, yeah, this one is a clear, probably within the 100 seconds, takedown and submission potential kind of fight. So
I believe he's like
really
plus
well.
110 to win in round 1. So him and Pavlovic have some really good lines, like almost even money to win in the first round. I think both of them make good sense for that reason.
Yeah, the inside the distance prop at minus 425 tells you everything you need to know. The full expectation is a fast takedown and submission here for Topuria. It's funny. I was looking
at
the
highest inside the distance on the card, I believe, like minus 280.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's minus 225 here. So check this out, Big Mar. I was looking at some of the prop sites, Super Draft and Underdog, and they have, Topuria over 1.5 takedowns. And I'm kind of thinking, I don't know if he needs that second takedown. Like, it could be, it's a dangerous prop. The first takedown, that's probably going to be the only one he needs.
I went with under 22.5 strikes from Topuria in that one, I believe.
Yeah, that was another one. I was kind of like, I don't know. Is he throwing strikes? Like, I don't think he's going to be throwing a lot of strikes. He's just going to boom, 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 takedown, submission, done. So I like the under on that one as well. Super Draft, for those of you guys who don't know, Super Draft, Underdog, Prize Picks, they're all doing MMA props now, and they're really, really beatable if you're, I guess I would say, if you're careful about which ones you choose, right? You really want to kind of figure the locks out. Like, I've got a lock prop for this next fight, and let's just jump right into it. Molly McCann taking on Luana Carolina. Molly Meatball McCann, minus 140 favorite. Come back on Luana, plus 120. I don't know what I just did, but I wanted to show the line movement on this fight, and it didn't work, but let's see if I can do that. Yeah, here we go. British people betting on their local fighters. She started out as a plus 115 underdog and is now hanging out at minus 145. And Big Marl, this one is very simple for me. I mean, Carolina's just a striker. She doesn't go for takedowns. Molly Meatball's Achilles heel is her takedown defense and really just getting out grappled. She's not the best grappler. Funny, oddly, she does use takedowns herself, but she's not the best grappler. So, home crowd, standing fight between two female fighters. Great Britain, British judging. I just think she's going to win a decision here, even if she didn't win a decision.
It's kind of how I put it. I think it's pretty close to a 50-50 fight. I would slightly favor McCann, really anywhere, but more so in London because it's the perfect type of fight for the crowd to sway the judges because they're going to be cheering every time McCann lands something. They'll be silent if Carolina does anything here. So I think this is just a perfect place for McCann to get the win. I picked her for that reason, but I also said if I got these odds anywhere else in the world, it would probably lead me to a Carolina play just because this should be a really close striking match. I see it being a high pace striking match. McCann being the aggressor, pushing forward, landing at a high pace, but Carolina can put up a good pace too. She'll be the one trying to move around the cage more, looking to avoid the contact and picking her spots, which could, take away slightly from the McCann action. But I don't know. I just think the winner of this one's going to score over 10x. I think it goes a little bit overlooked by the field. So I'll probably be overweight to both sides. This is the third fight of the card where I'm okay doing that. But at the same time, it's not going to take me much to be overweight, I think, to both sides. I don't see either one of them having, even 20% ownership. So I'm okay going, 25, 30%. But I do favor the McCann side. She's 8,400. She has never had a win where that wouldn't hit over 10x to this one. 85 is her lowest win. She got a 91, a 109, and a 93 in her last win. I think we'd see a similar score here in a win also, and I think she would be the one that lands a couple takedowns along the way. Carolina, on the other hand, she doesn't usually put up good scores in her wins. Her last one was really bad. What'd she have? 59 in her last one.
Yeah, this is by the way, I'm surprised. Carolina is kind of fadeable for me.
Well, see, this is what I'm saying though, is like those last two, 59 and 65, I would fade that, sure. But at the same time, this is a card where I'm really looking for some underdogs. And then I think that the aggressiveness from McCann will up the volume from Carolina here. So it'll be closer to that Cachoeira fight rather than those other two. I don't see her putting up 102 if she wins, but I think she would put up, 85, maybe 90 points in a decision victory. If this is a split decision, both of them could land over 6 strikes or so per minute in this one. So that's why I'm okay with the Carolina side, because I think she does score over 10x if she gets the win here. But at the same time, I don't think she has 100+ point upside where there are some underdogs who do. So not going to make it a point to get to her, but I see myself being overweight to an under-owned fighter. But I'm picking McCann to get the win because it's in London.
Yeah, I'm leaning more towards fading Luana Carolina completely. Just why waste I will not pull the trigger on her in a handcraft, and I just kind of think why waste the lineup? I see Meatball getting a takedown or two.
I have too many fades on the card where I have to have a couple of these underdogs like her.
Yeah, it's a 12. It's 11, 12 fights on this card. You could fade some stuff. You could fade. I'm fading her. I don't see Luana. All right, let me put it like this. Without a knockdown, and she ain't knocking down a Meatball. Maybe she could. Listen, Luana Carolina, she's got pretty nice striking. I'm not going to take that away. She's a nice striker. Without a knockdown, she's not getting there. 100 strikes, that's 40 plus 35, 75. You're not getting there. 75. I can't remember the last
75
time.
75 could get it done on this card.
Oh, man. You really have no underdogs that win if 75 is going to get it done.
That's kind of what this card feels like, though. Not many underdogs are going to come through.
I'm not playing it that way. There's going to be a surprise in there. Somebody's going to surprise you and put up a number as an underdog. I don't know who it's going to be. I mean, I don't think Jack Shore. We're not counting Jack Shore as a surprise, but if Jack Shore and Paul Craig win, this fight's done. So
yeah, I'll have more of them, but I think Carolina's a good pivot away.
All right. I mean, listen, I'm fine with it. I would go into it expecting that Luana, if she does that, she's still not scoring more than 75. But that there have been cards in UFC history where a 75 from an underdog was enough. I do like on the prop sites the over on striking for both of these gals, but especially for Meatball. She hangs out at around 80 strikes on those prop sites for the over under. And I think this fight is going 3 rounds. And there's no reason why Marley is not going to pass 77 or 80 significant strikes in the fight. So that's a prop that I really like. Again, same prop pretty much seems to be available on Underdog and Super Draft and Prize Picks. So that's one of the props I'm pretty well locked in. That's kind of my lock prop of the card. I don't. How do you feel about that one? You're not giving me the nod of approval.
I like it, but it was just so close. I think I only play on Underdog, and I feel like it was 87.5 or something like that. And I was like, I could see it being like a nail biter. You're really hoping for a couple extra strikes at the end of the fight to get there. So I'm pretty sure I avoided it. My favorite on Underdog, which isn't even available anymore because they lowered it, was Hooker under 2 takedowns. So I put that in every one of mine.
Under 2.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I need to see what that number's at now. Is it 1.5?
1.5 last I looked, like maybe 24 hours or so ago.
Because I was just taking the over on Hooker. 1.5 just before, but I think that's the difference maker, right? The 2, the 1.5. I do think Hooker's going to go for takedowns in that fight, but we'll get to it.
Yeah, we will.
I think he'll go for them. Will he be successful? I don't know, but I mean, he did in his last fight. So I like the wrestling version of Hooker. I like that version. All right. Gunnar Nelson. I hope this isn't your fade. Oh, no. Oh, my gosh, man. You fucking slap down my favorites all the time. Gunny, my boy, minus 525. Going up against Takashi Sato. Plus 415. This is a bettable fight, people. Gunnar Nelson inside the distance, minus 170. Fight ends inside the distance, minus 205. And if you want the best bet on the card, Nelson by submission, minus 137. Now, Big Marley, I'm just going to, Gunnar Nelson, I get it, right? Disappointing. Last few fights, couple losses. But how bad is it disappointing? He lost to Gilbert Burns and Leon Edwards. Maybe we thought of Gunnar as this elite prospect, right? We thought of him. We're like, oh man, he lost to Gilbert Burns and Leon Edwards. All right. So he's not a top 5 guy because Gilbert Burns is a top 5-ish guy. Leon Edwards, people still argue, is a top 5 guy. We'll see. I accept those losses, but here's the thing, man. He's taking on a guy in Takashi Sato, bro, who loses via submission every time he fucking loses, Big Marley. He always submits, and Gunnar is a submission specialist. How does this not go down exactly how I think it will?
Yeah, I mean, I'm picking Nelson to win by submission. I think that plus money on the submission prop makes sense. It's just that for DraftKings, I love that 9K range. And for Nelson to hit the optimal, that submission has to come in round 1. If it doesn't come in round 1, I don't think he beats the other guys on the 9K range. So if I'm going to fade one of them, I'd rather it be him because I think even in a round 1 submission, he's not a lock on this card for the optimal lineup. And we haven't seen him win since 2018. Guys that were winning in 2018 were Tyron Woodley, Marlon Moraes. Like a lot changes in 3 years, 4 years when you've been away from the sport. So I just don't know what to expect from Nelson here. I also am worried because I think he could go out there and just win a striking match. And if he goes out there and lands less, he's never landed more than 3 takedowns in a fight, period. So if this gets out of round 1, I just don't think he's on the optimal at all. But if he wins a 3-round striking match, I could see him scoring 60 points, 70 points in a win here. So that's definitely going to knock you off the optimal lineup. I would just rather go overweight to the other guys in that range. And for me to do that, I'm going to end up just fading.
Do not do this, Big Marley.
I'm just Xing them out.
No, don't do it. I'm telling you,
Xing them out.
That makes no sense.
All right, let's say, all right, he's never scored 110 points. So let's say that happens again here. I think there's other fighters who can score over 110 points. And I also think that we can kind of make some middle ranges, some middling fights that will really make us different lineup construction wise that could score high as well. So for me personally, the way I'm trying to build lineups this week, it just doesn't make sense for me to have Nelson because I want to be overweight to the ones I like more.
Man, I don't mind being overweight some of these guys, but Gunnar Nelson is as live as Topurya.
How do you know though? Like Gunnar Nelson from 3 years ago?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
guy? We might not get that guy. We
when
might
has
never see
Gunnar
that guy
Nelson
again.
fought a scrub?
Like Woodley was knocking dudes out in 2018. Now he can't even beat YouTubers. Like we don't know what the hell Nelson's been doing. I just think this line's crazy. He'd get knocked out too. I'd rather take Sato.
Oh my
Sato's
goodness.
my low super cheap guy who I'm gonna be rooting for.
I mean, maybe I guess you could convince me to take a shot. No. Gunnar Nelson, this is a takedown specialist, a grappling specialist against a guy who gets submitted every time he loses. That combination, once fighters start to submit a lot, they get choked out. It just happens again and again. Some fighters just cannot defend it. And we saw it last week. We saw it a few weeks ago with Ramaj or whatever. It's the same situation to me. You got a submission specialist against a guy who has been submitted multiple times. So I think he's as live.
Was Ramiz on the optimal lineup though? He did it too quick. He didn't do enough.
I mean, you got to do it within 90 seconds, or else some of these other
60 seconds. But still, he only scored like 95 points. Like, or it just wasn't enough with Ramiz for him to be on the optimal. That's what I see with Nelson. I think he wins with the submission, but I just don't see him on the optimal lineup.
Very possible. I'm down with what you're saying. What I do agree with 100% is if he doesn't do it within 60 seconds, you're right. You're probably much more looking at a 95 because Gunnar Nelson will not throw strikes.
Yeah, he will. He's a decent striker. I mean, karate style. He's not bad. He could beat
slow.
Nelson. I'm not saying he could beat Sato in a 15-minute striking match.
Why would he do that?
Because maybe that's what he's been working on for the last 3 years. We have no idea.
Yeah, I remember when he went up against Gil. You know, I do have a nightmare story when he went up against Damian Maia. And he's like, I'm going to test my grappling against Damian Maia and let me go grapple with him. And after the fight, he's like, yeah, I wanted to test my grappling against Damian Maia. And you're like, what are you, stupid? You're up against a guy who can't strike at all. And you have the ability not to allow the takedown. And you're like, no, I'm going to test myself. Like, what are you, a moron? So there is a little bit of him being a moron. Or let's not say that. He knew what he was getting into. More of like him not really caring if he wins or loses, apparently. That was with the Damian Maia thing. So I'll take that. Like, I guess you could be stubborn and be like, no, I'm testing my striking against Takashi Sato, a guy who has no grappling. Why would you do that, though?
Because if you're winning, you don't have anything to worry about, right?
I think you take him down, you submit him, and you do it in 60 seconds.
He's been away for so long. He wants to get some time in the cage.
If it happens within 60 seconds, Big Marley, you're going to be looking at a 130.
It's not happening in 60 seconds. I don't even know that he gets a takedown in 60 seconds. I think he'll find his range. He's going to
dance around
around. He might not even throw a strike in the first 60 seconds.
Yeah, that happens too.
We'll see.
All right, we'll see.
I just don't know what the hell to expect from Nelson, a guy who we haven't seen. My red flags are way more there for him than Makayev. And if he's, because everyone's kind of high on Nelson this week, if he's going to be higher on than Makayev, like full fade, give me the Makayev.
Listen, I'm not going to go against the great one here.
But at the same time, give me Nelson to get a submission.
Yeah, probably Nelson is winning this fight by submission. The question is when. I think it's a really fun fight to bet on because you can get that prop at -135, and that's the way I would do it. I don't think he's knocking him out. He doesn't do that. Every single win by Nelson is by submission. Takashi's losses have all been by submission. It's the most screaming win by submission prop bet I've ever seen, or right up there with the Bramaj bet, which we all bet as well. So let's just stick with that. Again, we're playing a guessing game on the 9K guys, which one's going to score the most. I think we both agree that these guys are going to win their fights. So, it's just a guessing game. And speaking of 9K fighters, we've got the baddie himself. What, is this Conor McGregor 2.0? Not exactly.
Mouth-wise, sure.
Mouth-wise, I'm saying he's got a little bit of personality to him. He's got the hair. He's got the accent. He's got the personality. Patty the Batty Pimlet taking on Rodrigo Vargas, another giant favorite, -550. Vargas +425. Big Marley, I mean, the fight ends inside the distance prop, sitting at -300. So, is that a little bit of sort of recency bias off of Pimlet's kind of last couple fights where it's like, yeah, he's this finisher that's going to finish him quick? I don't know. But what do you think? How do you see this one going down?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit of recency bias maybe with the line. He looked good in the finish. I mean, he didn't look great leading up to the finish. And a lot of his fights are like that. I mean, I guess with that haircut, you just kind of have to know how to fight, right? You're probably getting bullied a lot growing up. And that's kind of how his fights look. Like he's getting bullied, getting pushed against the cage, getting teed off on sometimes. Seen him eat a couple big shots. He's never been knocked out, but he's been knocked down. But then he just turns it around. He's a really great grappler. So if they follow him into guard, he could just tap him out with an armbar or triangle. He's got a good guillotine. So I just think this is a spot where it's a good matchup. It's another one where the UFC handpicked this one, I think, for Paddy to look good in London. I'm fine fading him in the future against some better competition. I just don't think Vargas is it. I think Paddy could win a striking match here, but I'm just not too impressed with his striking. His kicks are the best part of his striking game. He had some powerful punches that we saw in his last fight, but that's not so much his style. He's more so a grappler here, and I think if he can get this fight to the ground, he probably gets a submission along the way. Minus 300 inside the distance, a little high for me, I guess. But at the same time, I do like Pimblett in all formats here. I think he can get a submission in the first round. And I think he's the one that would be putting up more action leading up to that submission, which is another reason I'm fading Nelson. I just don't think Nelson gets the fight to the ground, lands 30 strikes, then gets the submission. I think Nelson gets the fight to the ground, just tries to get a submission position instead of punching his way into it or trying to finish it with ground strikes. Whereas I think Paddy will show off for the crowd. He'll land some big shots on the ground. Maybe try and finish it with ground and pound there. And if he can't, he'll lock up a submission. And that could come in any round here. So I think it's a good spot for Paddy. If I want to go overweight to all those 9K guys, that's why I'm fading Nelson, is just to get these other ones instead. But at the same time, I mean, Paddy's the most expensive guy on the card. I'd rather have Topurya. So I might be underweight to Paddy also. But I haven't built my lineup yet. I just don't know what the DS is going to give me.
Yeah, I don't think Paddy is a must play in that sense as well, just because every single 9K fighter has, and all the way down to probably like 8,900, they'll have like early finish possibilities. They're all very similar. They all have, for me, similar projections. Is this right? Is Kazula Vargas' takedown defense 25%? I mean, my goodness, he hasn't really fought.
Yeah, that's the Zurong fight mainly. And I didn't talk about Vargas at all. I mean, there's really just nothing special about Vargas, but I think his path to victory in this one would be a knockout. The guy's got power. We have seen Pimblett cracked a couple times. So I'm not against with my 150 throwing 5 to 10% Vargas in there just in case, because he'll be 5 to 10% owned, where Paddy will be 40+% owned. So just another ownership thing. Like if I can kill off 40% of the field, but only compete with 7% or so of the field, then I'm okay doing that. But I won't be picking him in my hand builds, because I do think the knockout is really his only path to victory. He could go out there, win a close 15-minute striking battle, but I just don't. That's not what we're going to see here. Paddy's a grappler, not a great wrestler, but if he can get this fight to the ground, I think he dominates once it's on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, Paddy's the more skilled fighter. He's younger. He's much more of a prospect. Vargas is who we know already. Tough Mexican fighter. Yeah, has knockout power. Can come in and knock you out. He's decent. He's probably, from what I've seen, I remember kind of taking him. I remember breaking down him recent fights, the Brock Weaver fight and Zurong. He was an underdog, I think, against Zurong, and he came through, if I remember correctly. So was that he was an underdog in that one, right?
Came through. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he's fine. He's fine. He's not getting better. He is who we think he is. He throws with a lot of power early in the fight. And so, he's live to land a punch at the right time, but I don't think this is the guy to take out Pimblett. I don't think it's him.
Yeah, let's just load up on the Topurya fight when those two go at it.
Yeah, well, there you go. You don't need this fight because Topurya is much more locked in.
When Topurya fights Pimblett, we'll just load up on Topurya.
That's where we can the shit talking between those two. That's right. Yeah, I think Topurya would do. That would be a great. I hope that's the next fight. I hope they both win and we get that fight next.
Yeah, I'd be cool with that.
Yeah,
probably. I doubt it would be next. I'm sure they save it for a little bit down the line, try and build them both up a little bit. But yeah, I want to see it.
Yeah, no, I like that one. I could see it happening, especially after a little altercation. All right. Co-main event, the people's main event. We've got Daniel Hooker going up against Arnold Allen. these are basically even odds fight. Hooker at -105, Allen at -115. And Big Marley, I'm going to throw this one over to you. Obviously, we've got Arnold Allen coming up. He's just winning a lot of fights. He's the home field guy. Dan Hooker moving down in weight class. Going to be huge for the weight class. Going to tower over Arnold Allen. How do you see this one going down?
So yeah, this is one. I mean, it's a close fight. Both guys are solid, solid fighters. Hooker's making his drop to 145. Looks great on the scales. I mean, he was shredded. You saw like every freaking muscle on the guy's body. I give Hooker the striking advantage, and I give Allen the grappling advantage, which is why I took the under on the 2 takedowns from Hooker. I just don't think this is a fight he's going for takedowns. I mean, he got takedowns against Hackbrass. He got takedowns against Felder. He got takedowns against Poirier. Those are all pure strikers for the most part who you're worried about their striking.
But
I would argue about Poirier striking is what I'm saying, where you're not as worried about Allen hurting you on the feet as much. You are worried about him submitting you. He's a good grappler. I think it'll be Allen that's going for takedowns here. And if he gets them, I mean, if this is a split decision type fight, the way I see it, I slightly favor Hooker in this one. I'm going to pick him because I think he can keep it on the feet more so than it's on the ground. I think he's a higher pace striker. I think that he's the more dangerous striker. But for DraftKings purposes, Allen is just a full fade for me. I mean, this guy does not score well. He's never lost a UFC fight, and he's only averages 68 DraftKings points. At 8K, he's only had more than 10x that 8K price one time in his career, and that was 82 points. That's still not going to get you there. So I'm going to X Allen out on DraftKings here. I do think he can have success on the feet. He dropped Yusuf. He's dropped like 3 people in the UFC. I just don't think he's knocking out Hooker. Maybe he can get a couple takedowns here, but I don't think Hooker's going to be easy to take down or keep down. So if the submission's not happening, I don't think we're getting a high score from Allen that way. So for me, it's Hooker or pass. And Hooker, when he scores, he always scores well. I think there's one time he hadn't scored over like 90 or 95 points in all of his UFC wins. He could get a knockout on the feet. He could put up a decent amount of strikes to score over 10x in a decision here. So he's the play I'm interested in all formats, but this is our co-main event, and I think ownership will be on both sides. So this is a fight I'm cool getting away from, hoping that we do see this fight go all 15 minutes. The winner could score 75 points in a decision, and there will be 20% of both sides killed off if that happens. So give me Hooker to win a really close fight where both guys have their success, but the winner doesn't score enough to be on the optimal lineup.
Yeah, I don't know how to say it any better. I agree down across the board. Arnold Allen has the home field advantage thing going for him, but Hooker is so much bigger than him. He's so much more reach. I think Allen's going to have a tough time striking with Daniel Hooker. Flip side is, listen, this is the reason why you don't necessarily ever want to full fade, strong men who are punching each other. There is the aspect of Hooker kind of extra weight cut that he's not used to, not enough water in the brain. I saw a video with Daniel Hooker like from yesterday where he's like, up 17 pounds to go. I'm almost there. Like it was from a couple days ago, and he was talking about his weight cut. He's like, I'm right on target, only 17 pounds to go. And I'm like, damn, bro, take me like 6 months to lose 17 pounds. So like, doing it in 2 days. All right. So, I don't know. I guess I'll throw that out there as the mystery. Like, what if the weight cut and messes with his ability to take a strike or something. But beyond that, and beyond like 1 or 2 percentage points out of my 150, I totally agree. Arnold Allen has not been a good DraftKings scorer at all. You could see here, he doesn't do anything that scores well. 3 strikes per minute, gets a couple takedowns, but man, I think you're going to have a hard time taking Daniel Hooker down. Again, he could go for them. I don't think he's going to have a lot of success getting takedowns on Hooker, and he's not a relentless grappler, so he's not going to do it for 3 full rounds. I could see Hooker taking him down as well. Daniel Hooker's been using the old wrestling last few fights. It's working out for him. So I'm on the Hooker side of this. The home field advantage on the Allen side, which concerns me enough to where I would not bet it. I'm not betting against British judges giving fights to non-British fighters, even though Australia is part of the British Empire. I was
close to betting Hooker. Like if I end up making another play between now and the time the card starts, I think it would be Hooker.
I like Hooker to win. I think you're right from a analyze the fight perspective. Hooker's the guy. But and by the way, and Allen's wins have not been as impressive as maybe in hindsight that we think. But the issue is those judges. I don't want to take a decision fight like this looks like to me and leave it in the hands. I don't want to leave my money in the hands of the judges, even if I think Hooker is the better fighter. He's got the size, he's got the reach, he's got the volume. Everything about this fight says Hooker should win this, except for that one, I don't trust the judging factor. That being said, Hooker for me on DraftKings falls in that category that I talked about before. Meatball, McCann, Hooker. There's a few, there's one other at Grundy. You oftentimes, Big Marley, when you're handcrafting these lines, you're going to see, you're just hanging out in the zone and you're like, oh boy, all right, this is who I've got left. You're going to be forced to take some of these. You're going to be forced to make choices. I think you're going to go with the meatball.
Yeah, I mean, that's why Carolina's in there, is because Allen won't be on my like he won't even be on that list. I'm going to X him out of the domination station, so he won't even be there to click on. So I just think that's why I'm going to end up overweight to Carolina. But yeah, I'm cool being overweight to meatball as well.
Don't be overweight on Carolina. Let me save you some money.
I'm just going to be overweight to that fight as a whole, because I think it'll be, sub 40% at combined.
Definitely will be sub 40%. There's no question about that. So yeah, I mean, strategic fades. Like I said, I like it. Arnold Allen, fadeable, never scored well on DraftKings. And this is just not a fight I think you should bet. Again, I'm picking Hooker to win. I think he will win. He's got all of the advantages, except for, where he's fighting. And of course, if Arnold can get takedowns and hold him down, if he kind of like does that, then that flips the script pretty intensely, and definitely leads to a low scoring stinker, regardless of who wins the decision. So very fadeable fight in general. I agree. I can't wait to see what your ownerships are on this one, because that tells the tale. If you're going to talk about, if that fight is going to be 45-50% owned, that makes me want to play more of this card and just fade the shit out of it. So yeah, I agree with you there. 100%.
Yeah, I should have it all posted in the next 2 hours, hopefully. So yeah,
ownership projections are so key in MMA, and you can only get them over at DFS Army. So make sure you're signed up for DFS Army MMA. Get the Domination Station Optimizer. Get Marley's, 10,000 word breakdown article for every single UFC event. Cheat sheets from Big Marley, E-Rock Fizzles, myself, every single week. The Domination Station Optimizer. We got my boy Gino out there putting out MME breakdown articles as well, showing people how to take down tournaments. Following, essentially, Gino just took down a couple tournaments in the last couple weeks. Other people following the system, taking down mini maxes. There's techniques to this. There's levels to this game. Got to get in DFS Army. And of course, like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Before we get to the main event, which we are at, the main event of the evening, Volkov versus Aspinall. Britain against Russia. Remind you of anything that's going on right now?
No, I can't think of anything.
No, me neither. Here's the deal, Big Marley. Tom Aspinall, a minus 125 favorite, with the comeback on Volkov at plus 105. This is a close fight on the books. The fight goes the distance prop plus 140. They're giving this a reasonable shot of going the distance. Minus 170 to end inside the distance. And the key stat for me is, listen, this kid, Aspinall, we have no idea what he can do beyond 1.1 rounds. As far as I can tell, he has never been out of the second round in a fight. Almost all of his fights have ended inside the first round. I don't want to penalize him for that, but that's just keeping it real. My guy, not fighting long fights. And Big Marley, I will just tell you from my point of view, and I want to hear what you got to say, the breakdown, but I mean, I think it's like first round finish, maybe, or bust for Aspinall here. I'm not sure what he looks like beyond that. If he brings the storm and Volkov handles it, I think Aspinall might be in trouble in this one. What do you think?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. It's a lot of unknowns though, and if this kid thinks he's going to be a title contender, he better be ready for 5 rounds soon. It's just that we've never seen it. I would guess that Volkov has the edge over 5 rounds, and he's plus 250 to win a decision compared to plus 450 for Aspinall. So I think the longer this goes, the more it shifts into Volkov's favor. I might not even go the full 25 minutes. Like he could dominate in rounds 3, 4, or 5 if we do see Aspinall start gassing out, and he could finish in any one of those rounds. He's got power too. He could finish early. It's just that Aspinall is more likely to finish this fight early. This is in London. He's going to have the crowd behind him. So, I mean, maybe if he wins the first half of the fight too, the judges could give it to him if this does go all 25 minutes. But that's if you're looking for a reason to fade this fight, it's that if you think this goes to a decision, that's the only way that or like an eye poke, no contest type thing. That's the only way that this is not on the optimal lineup, because they're right there in the mid range of the salaries, 8,300 and 7,900. I just don't know how they're not scoring over 10x whoever gets the win, and they both have 100-point upside here. Aspinall, he looks like the real deal to me. I think he's got the better boxing, probably better wrestler, better grappler. It's just that I don't know how long he could keep that going. Volkov is the proven guy, fought the best guys in the world. He's a high-paced striker. He's landed over 115 strikes in 5 different matches so far. He's got some decision wins that aren't great scores on DraftKings, but those are 3 rounds, and now he's got an extra 10 minutes to work with. So even in the decision, I expect over 10x from him. So this is going to be a fight I want in almost all my lineups, like 90% of my lineups. But I am picking Aspinall to get a knockout in round 1 or round 2 here. It's just because of how bad I thought Volkov looked in his last fight. I bet him against Tybura, and I was sweating that fight. And I feel like that shouldn't be a fight that I have to sweat. A good Volkov should just kind of run right through Tybura. He still won it fairly easily, but he just did not look good. He was gassing out in it as well. He looked like he was gassing early too. So I just don't trust Volkov enough, and I kind of want to root for this young talent in Aspinall because we need another heavyweight contender. Maybe he's that guy. Give me Aspinall to get an early finish here. But either way, I'm ideally overweight to both guys. So the way I put this is one of the fights that I'm finished with. I haven't done my lineups yet, but I said I see myself being around 65%. Aspinall 35%. Volkov, I want a lot of both guys. This is the second fight on the card where I just want to be throwing my lineups away. Hope that I can hit the right combination. There's 2 on the card that we could do that with. For me, I'm throwing the girls in for number 3. But other than that, I'm just taking sides on all these other fights.
I listen. I mean, you broke it down perfect, all right? Aspinall does everything you want in a heavyweight for DraftKings purposes, for UFC purposes, for everything. The volume is insane from this kid. The output is not anything you've ever seen from a heavyweight, but part of that is because it's just been the first round, like 7 strikes per minute, 2.73 takedowns on average per 15. Of course, those are, he's never gone 15 minutes, but on average. So he's got the wrestling, he's got the striking, he's got the volume, he's got the knockouts, so how much do we want to penalize this kid for the fact that he hasn't been out of the second round? Like, okay, that's actually pretty awesome. Like, he's just destroying everybody you put in front of him. Can't penalize that too much. But there's the mystery of the unknown. What happens when he does go beyond that? And you're right. Well, Volkov has been a pretty good gas tank guy for most of his career. And his gas tank has generally been pretty good, but it didn't look good. He's gained a lot of weight. He's packed on a lot of size since, the version of Volkov where here we go. In UFC stats, it shows him at 250. Do we know has he weighed in yet?
Yeah, I haven't watched weigh-ins yet, but he made weight.
No, I think we might see him weighing in at 265 for this fight.
They happened like probably 6 hours ago at this point. It was early.
I'd love to know if anybody's watching, if Volkov has weighed in yet, what weight he came in at, because he's bulked up a little bit. And maybe that's why, maybe that was, part of what happened with the Tybura fight where he just didn't look as good. But yeah, Aspinall's either going to finish him quick or we're all going to be sweating the shit out of this one. Volkov's a professional fighter. He's got wins against good opponents. Aspinall is an up-and-coming prospect who has just destroyed all the cans that have been put in front of him. But let's not discount the fact that most of these guys have been cans, like Jake Collier. Come on. You know, Sergey Spivak, they don't call him the milk sack for nothing. You know, like he can beat somebody who's terrible like Greg Hardy, but, you know, he's not good on the feet. Darren Arlovsky, you know, Andrei Arlovsky, that's a gatekeeper for not being terrible. You got to beat Arlovsky at this point. So his wins have come against pretty much cans. This is his first fight. This is a fight. By the way, just MMA purposes, if Aspinall gets this win, who's he fighting next?
Throw him against anybody. You could give Tuivasa probably.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it's Tui would be insane. I think Tui might, I don't know I think Tui might get a championship shot pretty soon, but he's not too far off. That would be an interesting one, right? If Aspinall gets this win, they start throwing him up against the top 10 guys, the top
Lewis,
5 guys.
Gane, those guys.
Yeah, so they start putting him in there. He hasn't fought Overeem yet. Overeem's not in the UFC anymore, is he? Man, that poor.
Yeah, I would imagine he is.
I thought. I
don't know.
He's getting knocked out every time. So he'll get his chance to knock out Overeem. He starts to get into that category. So, overall, this is a fight to load the fuck up on. If Aspinall does gas out, then Volkov could really come back and put some points on the board against a gassed opponent. We've seen it time and time again. I don't say that I know that Aspinall is going to gas out. I don't know. How do we know? He's never gassed out. It's just we haven't really seen him in the second round. He hasn't looked great in the second round against Arlovsky. He didn't look like he's got all his energy. He looked like, oh shit, he's looking a little gassed, and then he gets the finish. But how many times have you been there, Big Marley? You bet on a guy. He looks amazing. You're like, yeah, motherfucker, pay me. And then it's the second half of the first round, and he's starting to put the hand on the hips, right? Francis Ngannou versus Stipe style. And you're like, oh no, why is his hands on his hips? And Rogan's starts screaming about how he's tired. He's tired. And you're like, shut up, Rogan. Shut up, Rogan.
Yeah. If he gasses, though, I think he's getting finished at some point.
That's what I'm saying. So this is why you probably need to go. But if he's not gassing, he's getting a finish. The output and the insane volume for a heavyweight that Aspinall has shown means he's no one's going to handle that. If he's putting that on Volkov's going to, he's got takedowns. He's doing it all. Ground and pound. Volkov's going to have a hard time. Volkov's very easy to take down. He doesn't really resist that much. So I think this is a load up on both sides of it for DraftKings purposes. Situation, if Aspinall is doing his usual thing, he'll get him out of there in the first round and a half, and you're going to score incredibly well for 8,200 or 8,300, whatever he's at. And then if that turns around or Aspinall comes out round 2 looking like, oh shit, he's tired, Volkov's going to potentially put it on him for 4 rounds of a strike fest. That will score well for Volkov. Again, 7,900 underdog money. Definitely like him over anyone else who's around that price. So easy, close to an all-in fight for me at this salary level. All right, that'll do it for the main card breakdown, Big Marley. Now let's talk about our kill shots for this card. And just give me a low on spot. It doesn't even absolutely have to be an underdog. I think it'd be, we're not taking Paul Craig here.
Yeah. I'm going to go with a favorite. I'm going to go with Cody McKenna or Corey McKenna, whatever the hell her name is, McKenna. I just think that the 9K range gets serious ownership, and her at 8.8K right above Krylov. She's just in a rough spot to afford. So I'm going to take an overweight approach to McKenna. And if the DS doesn't give me that, I'm going to force it.
All right. I don't think the DS will give you any exposure to her. So force that in there. My kill shot, and listen, I am not even picking this guy to win the fight, but I just like this spot if he gets the win, and it is going to be Cody Durden. So I'm taking my shot on a grown man taking on a 21-year-old. Let's see what happens. Do I have, again, I'm still picking Makayev to win, but I like this idea that if Durden can pull off this upset, that would be one of those spots where you could potentially gain some leverage on the field. It'd be easier if we can talk, Overeem and Glory Kick, but there it is. I thought he might not be in the UFC anymore.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah, listen, what do I know? I thought so. I hate seeing Overeem just get knocked out time and time again. Like, good dude, go somewhere where you don't get knocked out every 2 seconds, bro. Cody Durden is my kill shot on this card, for better or for worse. All right, that's going to do it for the kill shot. Volkov, Aspinall, guys. Again, remember, like, subscribe, check out DFS Army if you want our tools, the Domination Station Optimizer, Big Marley's Big Breakdown Sheet. You can sign up as an MMA specific only subscription. It's $24.99. Use promo code Sleeveless from Big Marley. It gets you 10% off. You can sign up as a VIP. We're covering NASCAR, MMA, every single niche sport, esports, League of Legends, and of course, all the major sports as well. You can get a VIP subscription to DFS Army using promo code Sleeveless, 10% off. Support the podcast, like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time with another kill shot. Take care, everyone.